set it off. Go to Vegas, bet it all. Put it on the Bucs win, whoever they gon' play gon' fall. Don't say I ain't told y'all. Loose cannons gon' fold y'all. Yeah, the Heat be 9-3, but it gets real cold in the fall. That's when the season start. Bucs come in 40 hard. Win after win, ripping the division apart. Panthers, they pussycats. Falcons got bird flu. Take the Ravens and Dolphins and open up a zoo. Cause one thing's for sure, better than the Bucs, they show lane. No, and every day in Tampa Bay, we say fuck the Saints. We in Tampa Bay, baby. 813 going crazy. Tampa, boy. This Bucs podcast be the greatest. Loose cannons blasting on them haters. And we in Tampa Bay, baby. Tell them where you from. 813 going crazy. Yeah. This Bucs podcast be the greatest. Loose cannons blasting on them haters. Now when I say the loose cannons, what? Do you know what I mean? I'm talking Bobby Lock.
What is up, Bucs Nation? It is Monday, May 5th, 2025, and you're watching the Loose Cannons podcast. Please don't forget to hit that like button and, of course, hit the subscribe button on your way out if you are new. I am your boy, the Samer Ali, hanging out with Stank Bastard and, of course, a man who's been covering Tampa Bay sports since the dawn of time, okay? A man who covers the NFL for Fox Sports, the one, the only, Greg Auman. Greg, welcome back to the Loose Cannons.
Thank you guys for having me. It's good to be on and cool to have a draft to talk about. It seems like we were mocking drafts and looking forward to the draft for way too long. So nice to have it over with and looking forward to rookie minicamp this weekend.
Hell yeah. So listen, the most important thing that we all need to know, okay? When is Kyle Trask going to finally give up the number 2 jersey, okay, to Emeka Egbuka, who absolutely deserves it? We'll beat him in a 40 time. I mean, at what point will Kyle just bow down and just give this man his respect?
Nobody wants to see Egbuka wearing like 16 or even like an actual wide receiver number like 80. He wore 2 in college, so I mean, you can ask. It's not like Trask has played that much, but he's had it for 4 years. So I feel like you have to do this chain thing where Trask wants to get 11 back from college, but then Pratt has to give up 11. But if he gets 11, then he gives up 2. You know, maybe you throw a little donation to Kyle Trask charity of choice or something like that. It could happen, but like I
don't
said,
see it happening, Greg.
I've had it for 4 years.
Oddly enough, there's been a lot of jersey number talk on Twitter. Then you're leading the charge out there. First of all, when I think of number 2 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's Trask. Okay, all right. You think of 12, you think of Doug Williams, maybe that guy that just left here a couple years ago. But when you think of number 2, it's not Chris Sims, even though he almost died on the field. It's Kyle Trask, the legend that is Kyle Trask. So disrespectful to even say, like, Egbuka better not even talk to him about that. That's rude.
Ask. I mean, you're a first-round draft pick, so you could ask. You could say, "Hey, man,
no,
throw $20,000 to a charity or something like that, or buy a nice dinner."
No. So here's how it works for me. If you don't have your own charity, then you can't rightfully hold on to your own number. And I'm sorry, he now needs to transition over to Ryan Griffin. Okay, been here for a lot of years. Time to wear the number 3 quarterback, the number 4 jersey, okay? That's just the way we do it here in Tampa. Put that on, go make your bank the way Griffith did. He was awesome. He did everything right. The man is a millionaire doing absolutely nothing. It was awesome. One of the best hustles ever. But listen, if Kyle Trask doesn't have his own actual 501c3, then I'm sorry. Emeka takes the number, doesn't have to ask. I'm just waiting for Kyle to walk in to OTAs and they just got a 4 hanging in his locker and no questions asked. Hey, Kyle, that's your number. And you know what? Knowing Kyle, he's probably be like, okay, cool.
He's pretty chill about things, but it's like he couldn't get his number coming out of college. So you kind of figure out, okay, I can handle 2. You get 2. The single digit numbers you don't give up easily in the NFL because now that multiple positions can wear them, it's not just kickers you're competing with. You got ends and outside linebackers and all this other stuff going on. I'll be curious to see. First round pick receiver, you want to have a cool number, but like most everything under 20 is kind of spoken for right now.
See, that's what we live in, a soft country now. You should give your rookie first round draft pick, give him 60. Give a big number. All right. There's no receivers running around. Is that even legal? Can a receiver wear 60?
No, I think it's under. It's actually one of those where receivers can wear numbers up to 49. So you could wear like 46 as a receiver in the NFL now. It's not necessarily the most flattering. Boy, that guy's fast number to wear 46, but it would be in play if he wanted to. If that was dad's number back in the day or something like that.
I mean, they should totally do that though. They should have somebody out there running like Night Train Lane in a 43 just because. Makes no sense. I don't know if that's even his number, but it feels like that would be a number.
What was the number Julio had? Julio had like a terrible number, like his first month with the Bucs before they moved him back down to 6. I forget what he had, but it was just not a Julio number.
I don't remember. Maybe it was like 42, 40. Who knows? Maybe
it feels like a fever dream that Julio was even here.
I think when Shep came in, he had a bad number, and then he switched to a better number. Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen. Speaking of number 2, okay. Did the Bucs have the absolute best draft in the NFC South, Greg? But before you answer my question, let's go through the NFC South teams one by one and kind of go through what they did, what they added, and how that kind of stacks up for their attempt to dethrone the Kings of the South currently and for many years to come, in my opinion. So we'll start with the Panthers, Greg.
So Panthers got Ted McMillan. Yeah, went receiver at 8. Second year in a row, they take a receiver in the first round. But kind of makes sense if you're trying to maximize Bryce Young, trying to get the most out of that pass game. I think McMillan immediately becomes their number 1 receiver. He's their best receiver. Should be like Brian Thomas last year, like a 8-10 touchdown rookie type. Leggett did well for them. I think he'll be good for them. But I think that's good pick. Yeah, I mean they went edge. I think with their next 2 picks, which is also definitely a position of need for them. They added a lot in free agency, so they've put a lot into getting better. Didn't lose too much in terms of free agency or retirement and stuff like that. So no, Carolina, under the circumstances, felt like they did pretty well. Traded around a little bit. Where do you want to go next? Atlanta? You want to go New Orleans? What do you want to do?
Well, do you think the Panthers did enough to be the team that fights for 2 in this division, or?
I would think so. I mean, I think they've added more to who they are than Atlanta has. I think New Orleans is probably, technically New Orleans was 4th this past year. They've probably done the least right now to add to what they have. So no, I think of Carolina is kind of, maybe you'd say they're a nod behind Atlanta for who would be 2 right now in the division, but within a game of challenging Atlanta for, at that point, that's probably what, 7-10, 8-9, something like that. Mm-hmm. And if you're Dave Canales and you think about, the trajectory of the second half of last year, they probably weren't a very good team in the first half of last year. But if you think of how they were in the second half of last year and where they, if you just extend that for a year, you go from being maybe the worst team in the NFL to, 5-6 wins. And then, you add to that. And next thing you're looking at 7-10, 8-9, anything more than that, they'll be a really good story. I'm not sure I expect that of them. But still in a fairly easy division. You go 3-1 against Atlanta and New Orleans or something like that, and you're playing a 3rd place schedule. It's not that hard to take a big step forward.
Greg, do you believe that Bryce Young is an NFL quarterback? I get it. He had got benched, came back, played pretty well. I don't know what the strength of schedule was in the second half of the season. I don't remember who he beat, or if there was any games where it was legitimately carried the team.
Yeah, I mean, you think about what he had. I mean, his rookie year didn't really have a good supporting cast around him at all. And then, you go out and they upgrade the line in front of them last year, start to get some pieces. Even those didn't necessarily take. Obviously, the running back was hurt the whole time. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a help. Jatavian Sanders can help. So now, to have McMillan in there, they've added some pieces. They need to start winning games because of Bryce Young and not just win games when Bryce Young is their quarterback. So I think the idea, you think about Canales and what they were able to do his year here, you want to start getting 300-yard games. You want to start getting games with more than 2 touchdowns, and he hasn't had that many of those. And I think if he can start doing that, you get up into that 20 to 25 touchdown range. Okay, that's kind of the bare minimum for people to be excited about you as a young quarterback. And if he doesn't, this is year 3, kind of lost the job once already, was kind of fortunate to get the resurrection and the second shot he got in the second half of this past season. I don't know if he gets that again the next time. I mean, it's still just Andy Dalton there. It's not like there's somebody else who's really going to take it from him. But for Canales, for that front office, that coach, that whole regime to stay in control there, that they need to keep moving forward. And I mean, they have, probably a decision to make this year, because once you get past year 3, now you're eligible for an extension as a quarterback. There's not a lot of middle ground for NFL quarterbacks right now, where these young guys, even if you haven't won a playoff game, even if you haven't been a Pro Bowler, there's that, gosh, we have to pay this guy to keep him because you don't know who else you can get or what else you do. So there can be some overpayment there sometimes. I think there are a lot of good quarterbacks that get great quarterback money sometimes. But no, this is a big year for Bryce. This is a year where he either kind of stakes claim to this team and helps them get to be a competitive team in the NFL, or it can go the other direction if they're not careful.
So
it's not like, go ahead, Sammer.
I was gonna say, last year we saw Atlanta kind of, shock the world with their pick at quarterback. Ends up actually working out for them, because now it looks like, oh, yeah, these guys did know what they were talking about. Kind of by accident, most likely. They still have the weird Kirk Cousins situation going on. How did they kind of, how did their draft pan out? How did they add pieces or maybe ignore, deficiencies on that team? And have they gotten better? Have they taken a step forward to possibly, they beat us twice last year. So, you can't technically say they're not going to be the ones that compete with us, but a lot of people seem to be overlooking them and saying, what, maybe the Panthers have snuck up on them. Curious what you thought about what they did in the draft, and if they've been able to take enough of a step to not only beat us twice, but maybe actually make a count and not stub their toe and do what they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta, had that weird 4-game stretch last year where Cousins was just terrible, whether it was another injury or whether he just was at rock bottom. He had like 4 games where he had no touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and that kind of scuttled their season. I mean, they turned to Penix. That was probably the smart thing to do. I mean, the Penix thing, as much grief as they got for it, ended up being the smarter move. I mean, the Cousins, the money involved with Cousins was probably the mistake, and they were just already catching up to that and making up for it by getting Penix. So no, he's a huge part of who they are, whether they're good or not this year. I mean, it takes a lot. He'll have to have a Drake May, a Bo Nix type impact in year 2 to be, the leader they need him to be if they're going to be a playoff team or a playoff contender. I thought this is like the 3rd year I've been hammering Atlanta that they have to go after edge rushers and hit their pass rush, because they've just been ignoring it, neglecting it for like 3 years. And I thought they did a good job. I mean, I wasn't expecting Jalen Walker to fall to them at 15. I thought he'd be gone at like 8 or 9 or something like that. So that's kind of a gift for him to fall to them at 15. I think he's going to be a talented player in the NFL. I think he'll be an impact rookie for them. And then they kind of double down. I mean, it was kind of like the quarterback thing a year ago, in that it's like you got one edge rusher that kind of solves things. And then they give up their 2016 first-round pick to move up from 43 to 27. I don't even know that James Pierce was the best edge rusher available at 27 when they got him. I mean, probably 1 or 2 others that people, liked. To hear these people that spend a lot of time covering the draft talk about James Pierce, there's some curious off-field concerns in terms of the commitment, the love of the game, those kind of things that you hear Jason Light talking about, being a deal breaker, if you will. So again, props to them for addressing their biggest need. They very well could have those 2 rookies lead them in sacks. If they get 10 sacks and 7 sacks from those 2 guys in any order, that's what they needed, because it hasn't been there. But again, the problem is that they didn't have that many picks. I mean, they've used these picks in trades and stuff. So they only had 5 draft picks, and then they, used next year's 1 to move up and get Pierce. So they took 2 safeties, actually like Xavier Watts, the guy they got. When we talked to Benjamin Morrison after the 2nd round, he's like, Xavier Watts is like Ben Morrison's best friend. So, I mean, he was really lobbying, hey, for the Bucs, Bucs kind of could use safety help. Seemed like a potential match for them at 3. And they ended up taking Jake Parrish from Kansas State. But I like Xavier Watts. Crazy amount of interceptions. I forget what it was, like 13 interceptions the last 2 years or something like that. Where when you think about ball hawks, you think about things fitting the type of what the Bucs need in the secondary. He made a lot of sense for that. And he, as a 3rd-round pick, could easily be a starter. I mean, they need help at safeties. He could step right in. First 4 picks are on defense. I mean, their only offensive draft pick is a 7th-round tackle who probably, might not make the roster, might not dress. So as much as they've had kind of an offensive tilt to the top of their draft in taking Bijan Robinson and taking Kyle Pitts, taking Drake London the last 3 years, there was almost nothing from the offense in this draft when they could have used a jolt. So no, I think they helped themselves on defense. I think their defense was a problem. Obviously, they've changed coordinators. They've added some talent now. Still some holes probably on that defense, but definitely better. And honestly, I mean, it's one of those where if you can get to the quarterback much more consistently, it's going to make the rest of the defense look better. So to that extent, thought they did well. A lot to give up. You think about if things don't go right for Atlanta, that 1st-round pick they gave up,
very valuable.
probably a top 15, top 12 pick. They've had a lot of years where they pick 8th. And I mean, I think the Rams don't necessarily love draft picks, but if you get a pick that could be a top 10 pick, now they have 2 first rounders in a year where they probably take a quarterback. That could really help them move up and be a factor to get the guy they want next year. So for Atlanta, this is kind of a referendum year. If they're not better, if they're not competing, if they're not a playoff team, I don't know if that GM's back. I don't know if Raheem's back as head coach there.
Wow.
They were close this past year.
Yeah, they fumbled the division. It was their division to have last year.
Yeah, I mean, you sweep the Bucs. That second Bucs win. Bucs, I forget if they're 3 back, tiebreakers against them. They need a Falcons collapse to get back in, and that's what Atlanta did. Unfortunately, they just hit that terrible stretch with Cousins, and then they go to Penix, and Penix I think showed some promise in 3 starts, but it wasn't like he was throwing 3 touchdowns every game or something like that. So, if Penix can be there for him, and Penix can kind of be the same kind of guy the other guys drafted around him were as rookies, he has a year of experience. He has a year of being there with that personnel. He knows the guys he's throwing to. But that's what they need him to be. I mean, they'll get, the nice thing is they get a second place schedule. So that's how they kind of were able to stay ahead of the Bucs last year. The Bucs are playing that, just a nasty first place schedule where there's little room for error. And the Falcons are getting the runner up in every division the same way. So I still think of them as kind of being the best challenger, the top challenger. But if you look at power rankings right now, like I think our Fox, Dave Hellman just did his power ranking, and like the Bucs were 9. And I think the next highest team in the NFC South was like 22, to where that's not like last year. I mean, last year, Falcons are ahead of the Bucs.
Right.
They're in the 20s somewhere. So this is a little different. This is them maybe for the first time since like the Brady years, that this is them as a prohibitive favorite to win their division for what would be the 5th year in a row, I guess it is.
Yeah, they were the sexy pick last year. Everybody was like, it's Atlanta's division. Atlanta's going to win the division, and Kirk Cousins and in their defense is if Kirk Cousins started against the Bucs all 17 games, this
MVP.
MVP. So I'm perfectly happy with how it's gone down in Atlanta. As long as Kirk Cousins doesn't face us, it could be Penix, it could be anybody. Bring Michael Vick back. I don't care. Anybody.
But Stank, could they have a game plan to where those 2 games they only play Kirk Cousins?
The Taysom Hill thing, right?
A little bit of a Steve Spurrier mindset there. Maybe, hey, listen, we love you, Penix. You're the guy. But listen, against Tampa, we've got the secret weapon. We've got the kryptonite. Kryptonite Cousins. All right, bring him in, start him against the Bucs, 2-0 every single time.
Every time.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
His numbers last year, it's like 8 touchdowns and no picks against the Bucs, and then everybody else is like
complete opposite, bipolar, exactly.
Picks or something. Like almost as many touchdowns in the rest of his season as he had against Tampa in 2 games. So, but again, Bucs know that, I guess.
We ever.
So that shifts now to the final team, who we all know is going to be absolutely in last place yet again. The team that just continues to fumble everything they do. Okay, the New Orleans Saints. Greg, we know you hate them just as much as we do. We know that you say fuck the Saints every night before you go to bed.
Every night, yep.
Every night. You look like that kind of guy. I trust you because of that. I could see it in your eyes. You hate the Saints, and you've always hated Sean Payton.
He won't say it. He can't say it.
He can't say it, obviously.
There's a lot you're reading from a polite nod, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So with the Saints, were they able to at least make some headway on all the shit that they have going on in that team? The quarterback who's telling people at church he needs to go or he has an injury. Then you got Rattler, who apparently was going to be the savior. Now he's not the savior. What the fuck is going on in New Orleans? And have they been able to kind of chip away at that? Or are they just going to be, the 80s Bucs version of the NFC South here for the next 15 to 20 years, Greg?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, for them to be in kind of the cap situation they're in right now, where you're just stuck kind of stapled to a lot of aging veterans because you really can't afford to cut them, you have to draft well. Like, you have to really hit on your draft. I mean, that's kind of how the Bucs survived that post-Brady void year cap hell. Was they drafted really well, and they got a lot of impact from cheap guys on rookie contracts. And that's why they had sustained success. And for New Orleans, I mean, New Orleans won 5 games, like their worst record in 18 years or whatever it is. So
hell yeah,
to draft well. And I mean, it's one of those where it hurt. I mean, they put a second year in a row, you take a tackle in the first round. Kelvin Banks is a big guy, might be an answer for them. They've clearly recognized that Trevor Penning is not the answer. I mean, you've got Buag on one side, you got Banks on the other now. They're putting a lot into Tyler Shuck. I don't know if that's the answer or not. I think there are a lot of quarterbacks in this class that people were wrong about, at least in terms of thinking where the NFL thought of these guys to be. So, I mean, Tyler Shuck, when he was talked about as the 3rd round pick, surprised me just because he's 25. He's going to be 26 when the season starts and played 7 years of college football. I mean, and it's one thing if you can't beat out Justin Herbert when you're 18 years old, but really wasn't an NFL radar quarterback until this past year at Louisville. So I was looking at the numbers all time on quarterbacks that start as rookies when they're 25 or older. And in the Super Bowl era, it's a really short list. The most touchdowns thrown by anybody in that group is 14 in a year. I think that's Brandon Weeden, maybe. Like Weeden and Wenke and Aiden O'Connell, I think, are the only guys to even get double-digit touchdowns in a season.
Chris Wenke, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Hey, Chris, show respect.
Wenke was like 28 as a rookie. He did like a career of minor league baseball before he played.
He looked like everyone's dad when he was at Florida State. So, I mean, hey, I'm a Florida State guy. Love Chris Wenke. Amazing. Awesome. And Peter Work, unstoppable. Okay. But let's be real. Guy was already retired by the time they got drafted in the NFL by the Panthers. So,
so again, they drafted 9 guys. I think there's some good value guys within those 9. They're going to need them to step up just because they haven't been able to kind of keep their best depth, if you will. Corner is still a concern. You know, they traded away Lattimore last year. I don't know if they really have found an answer to replace him yet. So they're suspect. I mean, they have a first-year coach. They have what looks like a 25-year-old rookie quarterback. I think if they get Olave to stay healthy, if they get Rashid Shaheed to stay healthy, I think they have, the talent to be a better team than they were last year. Some of the reason they were bad last year is they had quarterback injuries and they had receiver injuries and they really weren't a functioning offense. And they weren't that good in defense either. So they can get a lot better, kind of like the Bucs, just by getting healthy. And that's a good start for them. But again, I think they have to have the same way. If you're worried about the Falcons, and Penix working out, you have to have a little bit more uncertainty for Tyler Shuck and him being a guy that steps up as a rookie star. I mean, it could be Rattler. There could be some miracle cure to Derek Carr's shoulder that has him play. But, it's wild to think that Bryce Young is the second oldest quarterback in the division, but he is. I mean, he probably is in terms of experience, in terms of age. So I'll be curious. I mean, the Saints, again, expectations couldn't be lower. We don't know who Kellen Moore is as a head coach, how well he can be as a play caller while he's a head coach. But their window there for that whole, Ramczyk is gone now. You had Kamara from that 17 class to have, Cam Jordan and Demario Davis are 35, 36 years old. So their window, for them to have a relevance post Breeze for those guys is pretty much this year. It's hard to imagine too many of those guys being back next year. For them to get back under the cap, I mean, they have decent amount of cap room right now. They're not really doing much with it, but I mean, they haven't necessarily gotten out of the woods. The Bucs, for the most part, are pretty much free and clear of all their post Brady cap issues. I mean, it's a little bit of dead money, but like $10 million in dead money now. So that they're free and clear. Saints very much are still kicking the can down the road. And I mean, Derek Carr, as much a non-factor he might be, I think will have like $69 million in dead cap next year on their 26 cap. So, it makes sense to try and start. If you can click around a rookie quarterback, that's one way to kind of get out of some of the economic shorthandedness you have, is to have, starting quarterback makes whatever, 10 million for the next 4 years. That helps make up for that. That's what they need to happen for things to click and for them to get back to being a competitive team and a challenger in this division.
Greg, if you combine Kirk Cousins' salary and Derek Carr's salary in this division, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that both of them are just going to be, non-factors.
Yeah,
and they're making more money than we can even imagine. It's
and what it does is it reminds you how fortunate the Bucs are to have nailed Mayfield. Okay, because Mayfield probably had less coming to Tampa than either of those guys had. That
Greg,
Carr had.
Call him Baker. Don't call him Mayfield. Continue.
So for him to come in and not just play well, but kind of be a leader. I mean, that's one thing you haven't seen. Like, I mean, Derek Carr, you don't see him as a locker room guy who they've rallied around New Orleans. You really didn't see Cousins, I think, when he was going. I think when he had, the first half of the season, probably had a little in Atlanta, but it's just really fortunate. You see how much of a crapshoot that, veteran on the rebound type deal can be. It doesn't always work out like it has in Tampa.
I mean,
The
they have
the whole swag thing, the swag surfing thing, that wore very thin as soon as they started just blowing games left and right.
Greg, I mean, like, what do the Saints do with this quarterback situation? It's just such a mess. Derek Carr didn't sign up to be a clipboard holder. He wasn't signing up to go mentor a rookie. Rattler had the feeling that he was gonna be the guy, and they were kind of empowering him. Then they say, "Hey, go run around behind this Swiss cheese offensive line." Also, we suck everywhere else as well. And then they go and draft a rookie quarterback. And so my question to you after all this is, how hard did you laugh when they drafted Tyler Shuck out of Louisville?
I mean, I kind of thought they would draft a quarterback. I mean, people thought they'd take Shador at 9, So,
But
I mean,
Shuck of all people, like,
right. Shuck. Well, and the problem is that I feel like I get that if you don't have a quarterback, you're always trying to get one, right? That's the NFL today. But I feel like what they've done, this is 3 years in a row they've drafted a quarterback. It's like a half court shot. It's like you keep taking them, but there's so little chance. Third day draft picks just haven't clicked in the NFL. I mean, we see Brock Purdy and you get excited because Brock Purdy was a 7th round pick. He's really the exception. Like if you look at the last 10 years, third day draft picks for quarterbacks, pretty much him and Dak Prescott, and that's it. So for them to say, hey, Jake Haener, 3rd round pick, see what he does. And then before he's really had a chance to do anything, you overwrite him with Spencer Rattler. And Rattler might have been a little bit of value when they got him last year, but he was 0 for last season. And then whatever confidence you might have had in Rattler, you overwrite because now you've brought in somebody who's less experienced and somehow older than he is with Tyler Shuck. So between the three of them, it's kind of like you need a $5 bill, you need a $10 bill, and we got 3 ones. And it's just not the same thing. He could surprise us. There's lots of people that spoke really highly of Tyler Shuck in this whole draft process. I was there in Mobile and saw him and didn't even, I wrote on the guys who could be late round quarterbacks. And I wrote about Dart and Milroe and Riley Leonard and didn't even write about Shuck that much. So I could be that I've completely missed it. And what he showed at Louisville in throwing 22 touchdowns is something that translates. He's going to be physically more mature, intellectually more mature because he's played college football for 7 years.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that translates to him being the guy that gets the Saints out of the hole they're in right now.
Let's hope not. Let's hope Mickey Loomis is there forever. All right. They can just continue to add third day guys and just stay in purgatory. I don't know, until I'm dead and gone. That would just make me happy if I could.
Well, and honestly, I mean, the path they're on right now, if they're the team that everyone thinks they are, their path is a legacy pick and having Arch Manning there at the top of this draft.
That's all they care about. That's all they talk about.
That's kind of what the next, I mean, that Manning family means a lot in New Orleans. So don't get me wrong. It would be a nice thing for them to do that. It's just a long grind to draft quarterbacks 3 years in a row and then take a higher pick in year 4.
That'd be 4 years in a row. As you're eating a $69 million cap hit, you said, for Derek Carr on top of that?
Mayfield, I looked at teams that have drafted quarterbacks in the top 5 rounds 3 years in a row. There's only I think there's 4 of them in the last 20 years. But Mayfield's one. I mean, Browns took Cody Kessler and it didn't work. And they took Deshaun Kaiser and it didn't work. And he was that third guy. He was that, all right, let's just use a 1st round pick, number 1 overall. And again, he's obviously not helping Cleveland anywhere, but that's eventually you're going to hit one that works.
That's the genius of Jason Light, Greg. He's able to play this 4D chess where he's having other teams make 1st round quarterback selections for him. Go ahead. Steve.
Yeah. I was going to say, is Kyle Trask the 2nd best quarterback in the NFC South right now? Do you think?
I'd even say yeah.
No. I mean, again, Cousins is still there. Carr is still there. I don't know what their health is right now. I mean, Penix, in theory, should be a better quarterback than Kyle Trask. I mean, Kyle Trask is an unknown. He sat here for 4 years. But if you ask NFL brass to draft the quarterbacks in this league, I think Penix probably goes before. Now, Trask versus Shuck, I don't know how that one shakes out. That's somebody else's call to make. But no, I mean, Trask, because I mean, the Bucs speak very highly of Trask. And it's not even like it used to be, you'd say, oh, he's been in the offense, so it helps. No, nobody's been in this offense. Right. I mean, everybody's new in this offense. They could bring in anybody and they'd have as much experience in this offense as, for the most part, as Kyle. I mean, I think it'll be a variation of what they had last year. I don't think Brizard's going to go that far from what they won with Cohen, but he could bring in a new guy really easily. So no, I thought for them to get Trask on the cheap, some of the cap math where I think it counts like 1.4 million against the cap. they got a good deal on him. And I think there's still upside to him. I mean, it's one of those where he hasn't played at all, but he also hasn't played badly at all. He just hasn't had a chance.
Right.
He's stuck behind two quarterbacks that don't come off the field. So you don't know what he is.
Part of his deal is that he's also got to be the CPA for half the team. So all the starting offensive players, Kyle Trask is officially their CPA, which speaks volumes. And the reason they speak so highly of him, Greg, from what I've heard, guy makes a mean-ass omelet. Saturday morning brunch with Kyle Trask, unbelievable, dude.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, there's a whole YouTube channel with him cooking breakfast. So yeah, okay. He's a little known skill. Greg, you brought up Josh Grisard. We're going to get into the Bucs draft here in a second, but is that the biggest question mark? I mean, not knowing what this guy brings to the table, if he understands game flow, is he going to know when to call plays? As much as I hate Liam Cohen, I hate the guy, right? I don't like him, Greg. Much I don't like the guy. You got to give him credit. He did pretty well. Although Bucky carried him and so did Baker. So anyways, Grisard,
be honest,
what are you hearing on the streets? What are you hearing, in the building since you're there every day? Is some hype behind this guy?
Oh yeah, just a lot. I mean, again, I think the continuity of promoting from within and not having to bring in somebody who's just bringing in a whole new language and a whole new mentality, I think that helps. And if it's one of those where it's hard for when you think about weak spots and you think about vulnerabilities for the Bucs. I was on Charlotte radio yesterday, and they were asking like, what has to go wrong? What has to happen for the Bucs not to win this division? And there's not a lot of holes. I mean, there's definitely positions where if X gets hurt, drop off to the backup. So you're going to have that
linebacker.
So absent that, just the hey, don't get hurt. It's probably Grisard just because he's unknown. Now, I mean, again, to their credit, they've nailed this 2 years in a row. They've had essentially first time play callers, okay, and they're head coaches now. And in Canales, you think about Canales came in with so much less to work with, if you will, offensively, okay, and really just took a baby step forward. Everybody got excited about Canales just because it was the year Brady left, so I think everybody thought they'd average 9 points a game, and they didn't. So that was a big win, and I think he definitely helped set Mayfield in motion. But they went from like 22nd in offense to 19th under Canales. And then Cohen obviously was a huge step forward. I mean, for them to become if you said top 10, it felt crazy. And now they're legitimately a top 5 offense. And I think what they've done to help Josh is that everybody's back. I mean, they've brought back, their biggest loss would be the swing tackle, I guess, right now you'd say. I mean, everybody else. Yeah. I mean, Justin School's gone. Schooley got another gig, which paid him well, and that's good. But short of that, everything's back. I mean, they're going to cut receivers. They have so many receivers that played because of injuries last year that won't make the cut with them. So you're going to have guys, again, the guys that we saw a lot last year, in Ryan Miller and Rakim Jarrett. And I mean, Shep is not necessarily making this team right now, because they've added 2 rookies now. They've added some talent to where if everybody's healthy, it'll be a really good, deep receiving core, deep enough that the guys you cut will make other teams 53s.
Right.
I think what helps Grisard is that he comes in essentially with a ready-made top 5 offense. And it's like, even if he is 80% of the play caller that Liam Cohen is, even if he needs time, I mean, we didn't really see a whole lot. I mean, Canales in the first month or so of 23 was working at the kinks and figuring out the cadence of what you do and how you get to this.
Right.
They're so much better in offense from a personnel standpoint. If all he is a step down from Cohen. He doesn't have to be as good as Cohen. He could be a step down. There's still going to be a really good offense. It's still going to be the stronger side of the ball probably for the Bucs. You just have to trust that he can figure things out. Todd's done a really good job. This is year 4 in a row now where you have a change in offensive coordinator, and they've handled it really well, and they're finding guys that suit Baker's strengths and suit the strengths they have. Now it's not just at receiver. Now it's at run game too. That offensive line is back, to spend the money to keep Redis in and not have a hole at guard. He costs a lot more than he did a year ago, but it meant a lot to them to bring the whole gang back pretty much as is.
Yeah, the thing that kind of works in his favor too, he was in charge of the third down game planning and the third down almost play calling. And the most efficient part of the Bucs offense, which saved them a lot, especially early on in the season, was their ability to convert on third down and keep drives alive and turn those third downs into touchdowns at some point. And so that's a big step. And listen, he might stub his toe for the first couple of downs, try to figure out his rhythm, how he wants to do things. And he still even has a leg up on that because he's bringing up, these guys already have the playbook. And, kind of, if you think about it. So they kind of have the roadmap, and even if he stubs his toes for the first 2 downs, we still got third down where he's already proven he knows what the fuck he's doing. So it's like he's kind of got this built-in ramp-up period that feels like it's almost a natural, growth into just becoming another good play caller. And the dude is smart as hell. On top of that, reminds me a lot of McDaniel. And he also is going to bring in pieces of what McDaniel did, which is the vertical stuff, which I think at times last year hurt the Bucs. They weren't able to go down the field, use Trey Palmer, even if just to stretch out the defense and keep them honest or get a defensive penalty, on a pass interference. We didn't see any of that. And that's kind of something that McDaniel has taught him. He wants to implement. And I think that's going to make this offense even more dangerous. And of course, you add in Emeka, you got Jalen McMillan year 2. You've got a lot of pieces now that can now operate, knowing that that vertical threat, even if it doesn't hit, is going to make more space. And again, your third and fourth best wide receivers are not going to go against top 1 or 2 or even 3 corners in the NFL. So it just kind of opens up a lot of things to where Grizz can really stub his toe and accidentally fall into 28 points a game somehow.
Yeah, they were so good offensively last year, and they did it really without a deep ball. I remember it's like week 13 or something. And in terms of like plays of 40 yards plus, they were near the bottom of the league. So it's wild that you can be, 28 points a game and you're not getting big chunk plays. They're beating you with a lot of 28 and 30-yard catches and stuff. But I think Mike kind of had a couple late where he helped their numbers in terms of the 40 plus, the longer touchdowns. But for a while there, it's something where you'd say like, does it even bother you that you guys aren't hitting on these big plays? Because you're scoring 30 plus a game. You're doing fine. You don't need it. Fundamentally, you like to have that. And I think, again, just if they have Mike healthy, if they have Chris healthy, those 2 things, and now before you even get to having McMillan as 3, having Ibuka now as just another piece to add to it. Mm-hmm. That's another deep guy. That's a guy that can give them something they didn't have. So yeah, like I said, Grizzard would very much be the question mark only because he's one of the few uncertainties they have in a key position right now.
Greg, how much does a guy like Tom Moore have, impact in that room? Is he at all in the earpiece on game day? Is he a part of the game planning? Is he whispering in these coaches' ears, "Hey guys, I see this," or is he just more of a behind the scenes,
just grunting in the background? He's just that's all he's doing the whole time. It's great.
Yeah, I don't know how much he's in people's ears on game day, like during a game, but I think he's absolutely the guy that everybody turns to ask, what do you do? What would you do here? I think especially as a defensive head coach, you can't have enough smart opposite side. You think about just the weak side. Okay. And for Bowles, gives a lot of autonomy to his coordinators, but he's also got some really young coordinators. Todd's one of the I think he's like 6th oldest coach in the NFL right now, but he keeps going lower. Earlier, Canales was like 40, Cohen was like 39. Now Grizzard's like 34. He's trusting younger and younger guys. And I do think part of it is that you got people in the room that were coaching in 1961. So that's going to give you some wisdom. Tom Moore is an absolute treasure. And it's the neatest thing. I don't even ask. It's like it used to be you'd reach out, about this time of year. Hey, coach, I just want to make sure you're back. He's going to be there longer than all of us. Okay. He's going to outlast us all. It's going to be, I guess I think it's 86. I don't want to get his age wrong and short the guy, but it's neat how much
Hall of Famer, right, Greg? He's going to be a Hall of Famer.
It's really hard for assistants to get in, like kind of the Monty Kiffins of the world. Yeah. They got him in with kind of a designation last year, just that he's there as a contributor. But to think about, I can't tell you how many times you'll be looking up like, when's the last time this happened? And it's wild in that it comes up more often than you want. Lynn Swann we're watching the draft and Lynn Swann is announcing like the Steelers' 3rd round pick or something. He was Lynn Swann's receivers coach 50 years ago. Okay. We're watching Rashad Perriman. And again, he was Rashad's dad's offensive coordinator 30 years ago.
His dad.
It's just really cool. And that I'm at the age where I feel old when I cover somebody's son or I see, Rondé Gadsden Jr. just got drafted. Mason Taylor got drafted. And you're writing about people whose dads you covered. And Tom obviously is a whole nother level of generation.
Tom's coaching grandkids, dude.
Right. And like Tom Moore, I'm going to get this wrong in terms of math, but like he replaced McKay's grandfather on the Dayton staff, I believe, is the way it works out. And that's the grandkid of somebody who you took over for that's now been a head coach in the NFL for a decade. Yeah, it's a cool thing.
I think
It's a
Tom Moore is
great-
holding out. He wants to coach Arch Manning. I think that's his ultimate.
Could happen.
That's what he wants to do. He wants to say, "Yeah, I'm coaching Peyton's nephew. And he's gonna run the exact same offense. The kid actually already has it downloaded to him. He's ready to go right out of the gate
for sure.
He already has the offense. Speaking of offense, let's focus on the Bucs draft. How surprised were you, Greg? We talked about it in all these different mocks on the show here. We saw some people kind of float the idea, wide receiver's not really out of the question. But to have it actually play out and for them to land Emeka at 19, how shocked were you when it happened? And then kind of how much did that shock sort of wear off and it kind of started selling, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was never shocked like, what the hell are they doing? But, I mean, I can remember in the picks leading up, all I'm tweeting about are, hey, these are the defensive guys available. And, these edges are available. And Donovan from BC is there. And Campbell's still there. And if they want to go corner, Will Johnson's there. And Starks is there. And all those kind of stuff. I don't even think once McMillan went to Carolina, I wouldn't really think about receiver them at all. And honestly, some of that is that's me not doing a better job of reading up on who they were. Because if you once you talk to Emeka Egbuka, once you've read up on him, he's sitting right in front of you as Chris Godwin 2.0. And I don't say that based on who Godwin is now, but just who Godwin was as a prospect, as a guy that will do everything, just as respected and as admired and revered by coaches and teammates as anybody in the draft. A really physical and willing blocker who's going to make your run game better. And if you think about the guys that Emeka's played with, okay, this is a little bit like, if you guys remember Adam Humphries, like Hump had like 6 NFL receivers that he played with at Clemson. And the reason he didn't do that much is he's just buried behind DeAndre Hopkins and all these other guys. So, I mean, just at Ohio State, he played with Chris Olave. He played with Marvin Harrison Jr. He played with Garrett Wilson, okay? Jackson Smith-Njigba, okay? Jeremiah Smith, who we barely know, and will be a top 5 pick whenever he comes out.
Yeah.
And he's learned from all of them. It's just a really cool thing. So the idea of him coming into a situation, people are like, is he going to be okay knowing that Mike and Chris are getting the bulk? Of course he is. It's all he's known, He's Ohio State's leading career receiver and probably was never really a one for them. He's just thrived being the guy who's open because somebody else is drawing coverage. And again, I think it's to see it now after the fact. I remember you look at so many mocks, like you'll have these consensus boards that have 120 mock drafts that they've brought together. Okay. Nobody in the last month of the mock drafts was mocking Egbuka to the Bucs at all. We've got him Bucky Brooks, who writes for NFL.com. He writes for Fox. And Bucky, I still haven't talked to him. He does a fair amount of work for Fox where he's on our weekly Zooms when we talk with other writers. He mocked Egbuka to the Bucs in January and February, like before Godwin even knew he was back. Mm-hmm. But it's either amazing intel or just, really good luck. But he had him twice going to the Bucs, and nobody else really had him going to the Bucs. So it's a cool pick for them. I think we all probably lean a little too much on positional needs. And again, they know the depth they have. I think the young guys that they like that are just growing into positions, again, Servasia Dennis, Tyke Smith, they like these guys. And I think they're trusting them to be able to step up and handle things in a big way, enough that they're not addressing positions when they really could. There's veteran linebackers they can sign right now that are 100 tackle guys, and they're like, no, we're good. So, I think that speaks well to their confidence you look at what they've been able to do to develop their talent, even their mid and later round talent with this coaching staff last couple of years. It's what they've done. It's why they are they are.
Yeah, you mentioned him being okay, not being the guy. And that reminds me a lot of Jalen McMillan last year, who was behind Polk and what's his name? The guy who got drafted by the Giants for Washington.
Neighbors.
Right.
Yeah. They were kind of the dudes, and all of a sudden Jalen McMillan's, kind of the forgotten guy. But you watch the tape, you're like, this dude was the guy. Whenever any of those guys went down, he was the dude. And he stepped up. Reminds me a lot of that, coming in comfortable, being the backup option, not making too much noise about it. And again, Chris and Mike, those guys very unselfish, and so they add character guys the same way. Just checks off a lot of the same boxes. Reminds me a lot of him. Obviously, with a little bit more talent.
That Washington offense was crazy. You think about, again, McMillan's the third. Roma Dunze goes like 8th overall last year. Everybody knows who he is. Jalen Polk didn't necessarily do that much for the Patriots last year. But if McMillan the other thing is that if McMillan's healthy, okay, if he doesn't get hurt and has a full year, he's not there when they get it. He's another guy where they've done a really good job of kind of taking some injury, cutting corners, taking risks where this guy was hurt. If he's healthy, he goes much higher, but we think he'll be healthy. Benjamin Morrison.
I was about to say that's Benjamin. You just basically said
healthy and prominent for Notre Dame in a big push at the end of the year there. There's no talent. He's probably a late first round pick. He's maybe an early second or something. He's not there when the Bucs pick at 53. And again, that's just them trusting that there's other guys that I think they had injury concerns with that they took off their board. But he's a guy where, especially having a workout the week before the draft where he kind of shows how far he's already come, they're comfortable with that. They're trusting with that. It might be that by the time September rolls around, we've forgotten that he had hip issues and had any injury concerns at all.
Well, Todd's got years of intel. I'm sure he's known the kid for forever. So I think on top of that, the fact that he's had a surgery before, similar surgery before, seemed to recover well. Clearly, they didn't think it was too much of a risk to take him there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, again, it's a risk, and there's some guys. I mean, Noah Spence was a guy who had some injury concerns, and it didn't work out. There's obviously other guys they've taken where the injuries were the limiting factor and why they didn't work out. But I think more often than not. I mean, Jamel Dean. I mean, again, nobody's really thrilled with Jamel Dean right now. But I mean, they won a Super Bowl with Jamel Dean as a corner who Ohio State medically vetoed and said you're never going to play football again. So they've done it before at key positions and trusted their medical opinions to kind of override the concerns that a lot of people across the league have sometimes.
You don't know this, Greg, but Noah Spence birthed this podcast.
He was one of our inspirations, honestly.
Yeah.
Very good. I don't know if that's in a good way or not, but yeah.
No, it's not in a good way, which is why this show's a shit show all the time. So, we pick up inspiration from the weirdest places.
Yeah.
Noah Spence, happened to be one of those guys. And, I love
you were there, Greg. Greg, you were there is when you were covering the Bucs all, year round, and you saw his shiny abs. You saw how glistening that man's body was in that short jersey. And that right there, we said, boom, I think I got it. We need a podcast.
It was the era of, man, we have some good looking,
dudes.
OJ Howard out there. Like, wow, these guys look the part. If you design somebody in the lab to be, a Hall of Famer.
Justin Evans,
another one. You look at these guys are like
gorgeous.
We've got the best looking team on the planet. And unfortunately, we didn't play that way. There you go. What are you going to do?
Greg, what'd you think of the back-to-back corner picks when they went Benjamin Morrison, like we talked about, and then Jacob Parrish, who you would think, we have Tyke Smith. I guess it looks more and more like that whole talk about him moving him to safety is actually a thing because Jacob Parrish does a lot of what he does. And what'd you think of that back-to-back, corner pick up there as opposed to getting a linebacker possibly, which everyone was saying that's a massive need. And of course, obviously by the end of the draft, didn't even address it. So we kind of speaks a little bit more to like what you were saying about their confidence in Servassier Dennis and Levante and maybe some other guys that they might bring in at some point, and even the guys that are, behind those two.
Yeah, I like both picks. I don't know if I expected either pick to happen, but the more you talk to these guys, Benjamin Morrison is a really neat guy. I mean, his dad played with Bowles 1 year with Washington, which is wild, is still the team chaplain for the Arizona Cardinals, which is strange because they're going to play the Bucs this year. It's going to be that weird thing where you're leading your team in prayer to go up against your son in a game. But
conflict of interest there, yeah.
A little bit. If he was to recuse himself from the pregame prayer, that might not be well received. But I'm not saying that Benjamin Morrison is Cooper DeJean, okay? But Cooper was a guy that fell because of injury, and the Eagles had returning talent at corner to where he didn't have to step in September, didn't have to be there from the get-go. But then by the second half of the season was absolutely a force on their defense. So I think Morrison will have a chance to do that. I mean, I think obviously they have two corners that they've done a lot with here in Dean and in McCollum, but I do think he'll have a chance to grow into a larger role. And whether he starts in just rotating in a series here or there, whether it's just special teams at the start, you don't have to be a week one every down corner. But I think he can grow into the position where a year from now, he could be a major part of this. Parrish, I think, is probably more likely an inside guy. He doesn't have the size that they normally profile at outside corner. But if you guys hear my dog, I apologize. My dog is downstairs. All it takes is a person walking across the front door.
I'd love to hear what he thinks on the Saints draft. I'd like to see him shit on the floor.
Anyway, I can't get the dog to shut up. But Parrish is probably more of a nickel. And yeah, I think the model right now, the default would be Tyke at safety and Izzy and Parrish. And if they like Izzy and they don't have to throw Parrish in right away. But I think Parrish, you put a third round pick into a guy as much as they've gotten from Izzy and as a guy that's stepped in and handled everything they've thrown at him, he's still an undrafted guy from 2 years ago. So I think Parrish would be the plan there. And that's two guys that, again, I mean, if they're not last year, I think because we had the Bucs had so many players last year that were like every down impact, Barton, Irving, McMillan, major players. This rookie class might not be the same in terms of snaps and constant impact, but I think it's one where a year from now, they'll lean on this draft class a lot more. It's nice to not need as much right away or to be able to work guys in. But I do think not only the DBs, but some of the guys they took in later rounds will be guys that help them more as the year goes on, and especially maybe even after this season, looking at 26.
You compared,
Greg, are we about to see the
Cooper
most?
DeJean? Real quick, Stank. Just real quick, Greg. What did Cooper DeJean do in the Super Bowl exactly?
Exactly. I mean, I was there. Had a nice Super Bowl. Again, I'm not.
Was it a pick six?
I don't have Morrison getting a pick six.
Was it a pick six in the Super Bowl? That's all I heard when you said Cooper DeJean. Stank, Greg Auman on here just said that we're going to have a pick six courtesy of Benjamin Morrison in the Super Bowl.
I'll take it.
Heard it here first. I mean, we're breaking news.
If it happens, post this.
Yeah, we're going to post it tonight, and then we're going to post it again after it happens. You're going to be a savant, dude. It's going to be amazing.
Greg, what do you think is going on, bumping around in Jamel Dean's head right now? Obviously, say what you want about the guy, hasn't been able to stay healthy. We won a Super Bowl with him. Fans are extremely hot and cold on the guy. But I mean, we just drafted his potential successors. And it seemed to be leaning more towards press guys versus, what we've had out of our previous corners. What do you think? What do you think we need to see from him, or what do you think we will see from him?
I mean, I think they've sent a message. Obviously, I mean, it's one of those where he's really tight with Carlton Davis, and he saw what happened to Carlton Davis, where again, you're not healthy enough, you're not out there enough, they'll move on from you. And with Carlton, the thing is they had McCullum right there ready to step in. Yeah. So I think this spring, when everyone was talking about, they're going to trade Dean, they're going to cut Dean, they're going to move on from Dean. They didn't have somebody to turn to if they traded Dean. So even if there was an offer, if someone said, no, we'll throw you a 4th round pick for Jamel Dean, you're not going to go into a season with just complete unknowns at corner. So now I do think with 2 assets, they've put second day picks into now. And I think Parrish is probably an inside nickel corner, but now you have somebody on that roster that can take you off the field. I mean, Dean, I think for the most part is known 4 years now, probably since the Super Bowl. If he's healthy, he's on the field. And that's a big if for him, but he hasn't necessarily been pushed for his job, hasn't had to, Jamel, if you know Jamel, is a chill guy. He's not a guy that's very down. He's a roll with the punches guy. He can take this, and it's not going to be a hang your head, sullen type thing. He'll be motivated by this. His whole career, going back to high school, is people telling him what he can't do. So this could have an effect on Jamel Dean that you guys don't really think about in terms of getting him to be healthy, and probably a guy that picks off passes at a level. He really hasn't been an interception guy. I think he's had spots here and there, 1 or 2 really memorable picks, but not ever a 3-pick, 4-pick guy in the season. I mean, if they're going to be the defense they want to be, they don't need 7 picks. They need 7 picks in a month. They need 7 picks, from one guy. And it's been a long time since that's happened. So I think getting better pressure up front, that'll help. But those secondary guys they have to double their interceptions. And there's not many teams that can say that, and it's even feasible. But the Bucs with 7, you got to make that your goal to start out with, is twice as many as you had before, 3 times as many as you had before, whether that's Dean, whether that's rookies, I don't know. But I think it can make them all better.
Greg, we also moved on from another guy quietly. Nobody's talking about him. Nobody's going to miss him, clearly, because nobody has mentioned his name since he was, maybe your tweet was the last time anybody said JTS's name. And then we go into the draft, and we add David Walker, and the other kid, for some reason I can't remember,
Elijah Roberts.
Right. So obviously, these guys weren't happy with drafting the prototype, right? That height, length. We went with somebody a little bit smaller with the production. Both guys have a lot of production. What are you hearing about those 2 guys?
Yeah, they're really excited about it. I mean, David Walker, again, like small school guys can have really gaudy stats and it means nothing. But I mean, he has 80.5 tackles for loss in the last 4 years. And I mean, the NCAA, that's small school. That's Central Arkansas, it's Southern Arkansas before that. But like the 1A record for a career is 75. and that's Khalil Mack. Okay. And he's got 80. And it's kind of like, if you remember a year ago, and Braswell was a different situation, but I think the Bucs really like that Braswell is stuck behind these insane first round talents. And he stayed at Alabama, like could have gone, switched down to an ACC school, started every game, had 12 sacks, playing on a worse defense on a worse team. And he wanted to stay there. And it's a different deal. But I think David Walker, for you to have 20 tackles for loss, 12, 13 sacks at Central Arkansas, and if you do that in 22 and 23, you could play somewhere really good in 24. He could have been an SEC school. He could have been proving himself on a much higher level. And I like that he just wanted to be where he was and was a leader there. The coach at Central Arkansas is a guy named Nathan Brown, who played at Central Arkansas. Loves it. I mean, just talked about it. I mean, you think about, again, they always talk about for you to get drafted out of a small school like that, out of Central Arkansas, okay, you have to dominate. You have to be the best player on the field. And for him to be a guy that had, 20 tackles for loss the year before, every single team is starting their game plan with, what do we do to stop David Walker? What do we put a tight on his side? Do we chip him? What do we do? Are we running away from him? What are we doing? And he's still remarkably consistently getting 20 tackles for loss each season. So he's an unusual body type. He's short. He's like 6'2", 55. It's a weird body type. I'm not really sure who the NFL model for that would be. He actually dropped some cool names. We were asking him, like, who do you watch? Who are the guys that have that look? And he's talking about James Harrison. He's talking about Elvis Dumervil, old school.
Yeah.
Size didn't matter. They just got to the quarterback types. So
I said Dwight Freeney because he's
probably a little taller, but absolutely same kind of squat, quick. I think he doesn't have to be a starter. Doesn't have to have a Yaya type rookie impact. They've got Diaby, they've got Reddick. They're going to be your main go-to guys. I think, Walker can probably be a third down pass specialist, be a nickel rusher, those kind of things. Doesn't have to have a ton of run responsibility, even though he's decent against the run. It can be a learning year for him. If he's your fifth outside backer, gets 4 sacks off the bench, makes a play or two, forces a fumble or two, that's great. And a year from now, if you move on from Reddick, if you move on from Nelson, suddenly he's top 3. He's in your rotation. He's a fun guy to watch. Roberts is definitely a bigger cat. He's inside. He's like a Logan Hall, Will Golston body type. I mean, he was 285. I think he listed 292 at Pro Day. He's a hands down defensive lineman. He's not an outside backer. So, but like led the nation, I think, in pressures the last 2 years. Just really consistently disruptive in the backfield. I think anybody that's that big and can wear number 5 and pull off a single digit. I know JTS wore 9, don't get me wrong, but to be able to pull that off and look as athletic as he does, their third day of the draft was just really impressive from how fast for how big somebody is. And there's just a closing speed there. It's not cancy, but it's probably in the same neighborhood in terms of just being able to get a lot of distance in a short amount of time while weighing 292 pounds.
Wait, Greg, are you saying the Bucs went from 9 to 5?
Essentially, yeah, that's right. It's a way to make a living.
Yeah. The thing, Greg, that I really liked about from the Emeka pick on, I mean, you could even argue the same thing for the Emeka pick. You really don't have to force any of these guys onto the field and kind of stunt their development by throwing them into the fire unnecessarily. And if an injury does happen, at that point, they still kind of ramp themselves into the season, hopefully not having an injury in week 1, 2, 3, or 4. But then you also have these extremely athletic guys that can now come in off the bench and kind of just have their special, tasks or special part of the game plan. Third down specialist, come in, take care of run, or, you're part of a NASCAR package on 3rd and long, that kind of scenario where these guys can just kind of do what they're good at, not have to think too much, and kind of get acclimated to the speed of the game. And they've upgraded by adding these guys. David Walker, clearly better coming off the bench than anybody else we have coming off the bench. No offense to even Anthony Nelson. He's got the experience and he's made plays, but you got a guy very, very athletic in Walker. Then you got a much more athletic version of Will Golston in Elijah, who can come in there and rush the passer and can be this closing speed guy like you talked about. And you can mix and match these guys and let them kind of find their footing before throwing them into the fire. Same goes for Parrish. Same goes for Ben Morrison even, who, even though I still think is going to actually fight for that spot from the get-go. But all these guys, it feels like, we address needs, but don't necessarily have to force these guys on the field and stunt their growth, which is what's happened to so many teams in the past and so many Bucs teams in the past where we're just like throwing guys in there and hoping they succeed. guys like Noah Spence and of the sort. So it's nice to see them be able to add pieces at value and still not have to really force that issue with them. And that's, I think, when you really start to see guys grow and develop. And that's a credit to this Bucs staff and, of course, the guys at the front office.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know if the parallel works or not, but it feels a lot like these SEC powers, your Georgia and your Alabamas, that can recruit and bring in elite talent, and you don't need to put them on the field right away. So there's somebody who you almost forget about their freshman year because I thought that was like a 5-star, and like he's behind 2 future draft picks, but he could sit and learn. And I think one of the reasons the Bucs have had great rookies in recent years is that they've needed them. Like there's been huge 800 snap opportunities for guys to step in. The reason Bucky Irving stands out so much is they were dead last in rushing the last 2 years. They needed him to be that. They don't have that many needs for these rookies. So it's one of those where you can wait. If you're healthy, you might not need them much at all, And I think the first 5 picks are all locks to make the roster. They're all going to make the cut. They might not all dress right away and be on the active 46, but I think they're all guys that they can count on to build on, and that wasn't always the case. I think there were Bucs teams, even again in the last 5 years, where there's 3 undrafted rookies that are playing key roles just because the depth wasn't there, and they made that transition from the Brady years where all of your depth was 33-year-old guys on their third team that still had it, but were kind of waning. And they've replaced that where now your depth is young guys and up and comers and potential successors, where when somebody comes up for free agency, you're not absolutely like, oh, we have to re-sign this guy because there's nothing. If we don't keep that guy, there's nothing there. So as much as we talk about Ben Morrison supplanting Jamel Dean, if he plays well, it's kind of a negotiation thing where they don't have to write a ridiculously huge check for Zion McCollum. They can tell Zion, hey, we got somebody else we like here. Ben's playing pretty well. And I mean, again, I think they like Zion McCollum. I think they're going to pay what it gets Zion McCollum. But I think from a leverage standpoint, it helps you to have somebody young and promising that you can at least threaten to turn to and make them think, okay, well, maybe they would move on without me. And maybe that makes you take, B+ money instead of A money to stick around, that kind of thing.
Greg, the guy that we haven't talked about yet, and you said the first 5 picks might make the team. I argue this guy could have the biggest impact on the roster. Gadget guy, immediately, he's already claimed the punt returner role. Watch the tape, okay? I get it. He's 125 pounds. I don't care. I don't care. Nobody can cover him. Nobody can tackle him. He legitimately is like the guy that's the most exciting piece that we've added to the puzzle here. What do you think about a 157-pound wide receiver making this team that's got, like you said, the deepest wide receiver roster maybe in the history of the NFL?
Yeah, it's cool in that the Bucs have tried this tiny receiver. I mean, DT, Devin Tompkins, again, was super like 155 pounds. Cam Johnson last spring. Cam's bigger. He's like 190, but he's 5'7". So they've clearly tried to, hey, this is a corner we can cut. We can take advantage of the NFL seeing height and ignoring somebody and find somebody who's tough enough and crazy enough to make plays across the middle. I like Tez Johnson a lot. I got to go to Mobile and was in Mobile, and like I'm sitting there watching practice. They do the one-on-one receiver on DB drills, and it's almost unfair for the DBs because the quarterback and the receiver knows DB has no help anywhere. He just has to kind of guess and hope he doesn't get smoked. Lindsay Rhodes, I do a lot of fantasy hits with Lindsay on radio, on podcasts and stuff. And Lindsay works for a site called Sumer Sports. And she's standing next to me and she tells me that they have one of those kind of RAS type numeric athletic scores, right? That combines all of your numbers, all your elusiveness. And he's literally the number one guy they've ever had, right? He's hidden inside 154-pound receiver, right? And we're watching him. And he's just smoking guys in DB drills. And the separation he can get is laughable. Like you're worried that he's hurting the stock of these corners because he's getting 2 steps in no space at all. And he's absolutely tiny. That's the thing. Okay. He's 5'9", he's 154 pounds, but he's had 10 touchdowns in each of the last 2 seasons at Oregon. Okay. At a completely high level, well-functioning, loaded with talent offense. There's lots of guys taller than him that didn't get the targets or the catches, the touchdowns that he's gotten very consistently. So it'll be fun to watch. It's one of those where they've overstacked their receiver room so much. They gave Shep $500,000 guaranteed like a month earlier. Okay. And that could be, I mean, that felt a little bit like hey, let's keep Mayfield happy. Let's make sure his guy gets a little bit here on the side. We're not giving Baker a new deal, but at least we're doing some small things to keep his people here and happy. So now, again, the top 4 is absolutely set. And the top 4 probably have 85% of the receiver reps if they're healthy in those 4. But then 5, 6, I mean, it's probably just 5, 6 and not 5, 6, 7. But and Trey Palmer really needs a good camp to make sure he's okay. Yep. Can't have penalties and can't have the miscues that he had if he wants to stick. Rakim Jarrett, who's kind of stuck around for 2 years here, needs to do really well, needs to be the best of that group to keep his job now. Tez Johnson, again, had an 85-yard punt return touchdown last year. So, I mean, it's been a long time since this team has had a return touchdown. I think they've had moments with some of the guys they've had where it's like, wow, you know, you get a 40-yard return, you get a 50-yard return. There's been promise. There's been better things than they've had in terms of upside returners. But Tez Johnson, to talk to Tez Johnson, you have to have a lot of confidence to be 154 pounds and go across the middle and catch everything thrown your way. He is not lacking for confidence. And it's neat in that he's literally Bucky Irving's best friend. And it's like, I think it's smart of them to say, boy, we had a 4th round grade on Bucky Irving and probably should have been a 1st round pick.
Yep.
Everybody else is missing out. I remember in Mobile, I'm like looking up like, God, if he's that small, like where does Ted Johnson go in the draft? And I remember thinking like 4th or 5th round.
Yeah.
So to be able to get him, it was 7th round and you're kind of looking down the list and it's like, kind of, they take a flyer on a quarterback. Who are they going to take? And Tez made a lot of sense because if you were an undrafted receiver, you would not choose Tampa. Okay.
No.
Nothing against Will Shepard, nothing against the guys they got to come in here, the West Virginia quarterback. This is not an easy room to break into. Okay. Not the 53, not even the practice squad. It's just a really talented, really deep group. And what they did is say, okay, this 7th round, again, 7th round picks get cut so easily in the NFL. And they said, let's take a guy that would be really hard for us to convince if Tez Johnson went undrafted, which is only like 20 picks after the Bucs went, they wouldn't be able to get him. But they
he would have ended up in Denver for sure. You know?
Right. Oh no, there's other places where he could have gone and did do well. But I thought it was smart of them to say, let's overstack. You know, they know how much they had to play Ryan Miller and Marquez Callaway. And you know, they went 9-10 deep at receiver last year. So you're gonna overcompensate. You're gonna bring in extra. And it's a 7th round pick. This is so if you look at Jason Light and his history with 7th round picks, it's so barely anything at all. It's Stevie Tuikulavatu. Okay. It's what was the LSU guy? Anthony. I'm blanking on the name now. I mean, I've already forgotten who he is. His 7th round picks were not a long history of, you know, to get the Devin Culps now and to get the late round picks that are sticking around is a change from who he was. For a long time, if you were drafted after the 5th round, you never made it here. And sometimes you didn't make it anywhere. So it's cool to think now you get to the point where we're making a case for why Tez Johnson sticks as a 7th receiver or why he, you know, bumps somebody that had 20 catches last year off an NFL roster.
Greg, you went, you know, direction of you know, speaking about a guy that's had his size overlooked. Let's talk about a guy who had his size underlooked, okay, and undervalued. In what I think is going to be the greatest undrafted free agent rookie in the history of the NFL, in Desmond Watson, nearly 500 pounds. He's already down 20-something pounds, he said. Okay, he's getting fit. I think he just took one walk to his mailbox in Florida. Boom, 20 pounds lighter. That's really how it works. But let's talk about Desmond Watson, fan favorite, before we even added him to this roster. Okay, overlooking Tez Johnson's size. Well, guess what? They underlooked and undervalued this man's size, his speed, his athleticism. What does it look like to you in terms of Desmond Watson on the Bucs? Not just defense, by the way, but possibly in the backfield come August, September, October in Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I texted Jason that Sunday, it was Saturday night or whatever. I was like, I feel confident in saying you're the first GM in NFL history to add 2 players on the same day, and one of them literally weighs 3 times as much as the other one.
Yeah.
Because there's a 310-pound difference between those 2 guys.
4 draft picks right there.
Cool. Des Watson, I went to Florida. My son was a senior at Florida. So we went to the Gator Bowl game in Tampa, and they beat the daylight to Tulane. And the single coolest moment in that game, they're up big. It's a 3rd and 1, maybe inside the 10. and they bring out Big Dez in the offensive backfield. And like Gator fans, again, like Buck fans talk about Vita Vea, Gator fans have been clamoring for Dez to get a carry for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him out, and it was literally the loudest the place was the entire. They had long touchdowns that didn't get the sustained cheers that Dez got. And they put him in the backfield, and he got a carry, and he rumbled. It wasn't a great run, but he got the first down, converted 3rd and 1. And they're at the goal line, and it was funny in that they pulled Dez and they put in Marco Rubio's son is also a walk-on for the Gators, and they put little Rubio in, and it had like the exact different opposite effect on the crowd. Rubio got a touchdown; it was neat, but they love Big Dez. It's like Gator. The Bucs had their local pro day. This is like 3 weeks before the draft, and Dez posted a picture. And I'm like, oh wow! Like, I mean, Dez is from Tampa. He might be staying in Tampa, and I literally was like, I have to try and write Dez here before the draft, and got his agent. Met Dez at a Starbucks. Nice as can be. It's one of those where I think everybody. I'd like to lose some weight. Dez is trying to lose weight, and you absolutely get that. Like that's been the thing that people have wanted him to do. Like he got to Florida, and like Dan Mullen's quote was like, "Yeah, he needs to drop a 12 or 13-year-old," and he literally said, right? Like it's mean.
That's fucked up.
And Dez did not. To be clear, Dez like came in at 400, and the next year he's like 415. The next year he's 429, 464 pro day. But to talk about him,
he ate a 4-month-old baby.
Yeah, maybe 7-month-old, maybe.
7-month-old.
Yeah,
it's really cool how much he recognizes that. I mean, this was kind of the plan. Like before the draft, like most guys that are marginal, like, no, I want to get drafted. I think I'm a 3rd-day pick. I don't know where. Dez didn't need to get drafted. Dez wanted to go somewhere that would put him on the practice squad, make that investment. He could make this roster, don't get me wrong, but if he doesn't, it's only like, I say only, but it's like $300,000 to put a guy in the practice squad for a year. And if all he does is spend a year in an NFL locker room, getting better as a player, working with NFL nutritionists, literally hire a guy around the clock. If he's athletic, I mean, he had 25-inch vertical at 464 pounds. He bench pressed more than anybody at the combine. Did 36 reps at 225. If he can do that when he weighs 450, it's like you can only imagine what he could do if he gets down to 400, if he gets down to 380. And it's doable. Like I said, Florida couldn't get it done for whatever reason. But, I mean, there's NFL-level nutritionists that will sit with him that will be able to give him everything he's supposed to eat in a day. I think he's got the right approach. Talk to Dez. His whole thing was pay at the pump, okay? It's like don't go inside the gas station because there's nothing good for you inside a gas station to eat. So his thing is pay at the pump. Don't go inside. Don't pull off to get fast food. Try and control what goes in your body from a food standpoint. And again, if he does that, it'll be a really neat story. He's super easy to pull for. He's from Plant City. He's a Tampa guy. Every time he comes in the game, the crowd's going to cheer for him. I don't think he can wear 21 in the NFL because D lineman can't. But
it won't matter. You won't be able to read it anyway. It doesn't even matter what number he's wearing.
Listen, I'm okay with Kyle giving his former, guy, former schoolmate 2. I feel like that would be a slimming number, right? First of all, it would look great on him. And you know what, Greg, you say practice squad, but I feel like as soon as he goes and he sees Greg Gaines, he's like, this guy? That's all I got to beat out is this guy?
I could eat that guy.
Instantly. Exactly. I could eat him and still win this backup nose tackle, interior job. So I'm hopeful, extremely hopeful that he does. And there's just one other guy, right? Everybody's going to talk about. We have a celebrity.
Wait. Before you move on, Stank,
right,
I was going to say Desmond Watson. I think an important thing that people maybe don't talk about is in college, you're not really in a position to hire a personal chef. You can't necessarily hire a, round the clock dietitian, nutritionist, that kind of guy, no matter what the team is able to provide. But I feel like for the Bucs, even if he's, still not in a position to do that, I think he would be now. But let's say he's not. I think for the Bucs, it would be more than worth the investment to give him that person. Here, dude, you have a full-time chef. We're taking care of the salary. He's going to make sure everything that goes in your body. Also, by the way, down the street, there's a fucking TB12. Just FYI.
Not anymore.
Oh, there's not? It's gone. All right, cool. All right, see you later. Keep moving then. But either way, they have a chance to put him in a position, like you said, Greg, being in an NFL locker room and seeing how guys take care of their bodies, probably a huge step. In college, you're kind of fucking around. If you're not a star guy and everyone's watching you, you're still going to parties, you're drinking, you're having the whole the whole experience. And I think now he's like, all right, I'm a grown up
student. You're
That's
also
what I'm
a college
saying.
student.
You're eating junk food. Stank goes into those gas stations
all the time.
Barefoot.
I can't not eat them when I see them. Or if you get some hot and fresh in there, or I see blueberry cake donut. Yeah.
Greg, what's your gas station snack of choice?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Best question of the night.
Probably better than most, but yeah, I can get a bag of chips. I've got lots of long rides to see my kids in college, and I'm bad about eating while I drive, and it's not, you're not sitting there with a fresh plate of produce next to you. So yeah,
you look like a Twizzlers on the road type of guy.
Not Twizzlers on the road guy, but like your Chex Mixes, your Pringles.
When's the last time you had a gas station glizzy?
Oh no, like once in a while the taquitos, I can do that. Hot dogs, gas station hot dogs don't usually do much for me, but yeah, I've done that when it's like buy one get one, or all it takes is some random deal.
Stank eats them every day for breakfast. Swears by him with a 64 ounce of suds.
I feel like it's good for the digestive system. If it can survive, on that wheel for 9 months.
I always like to have the line where it's like behind this line or in front of this line is not ready yet, as if there's like some code.
Right.
Like, oh, look at that. No, that's
like
not
there's
ready.
some fucking standard of glizzies at the fucking local Circle
not.
K.
Trust me.
No. All right. So Greg, Stank.
I
was gonna say there's a celebrity in the locker room right now, coming to town. The Shiloh Sanders, circus maybe experience. I'm gonna give the kid a chance. Seems like a really, really good kid. Has obviously a long way to go to make it on NFL roster. Any word on him? Any feelings about that guy?
I've tried to get him for like a week. Like as soon as they drafted him, I'm reaching out. He's picked up Rosenhaus, which is kind of a black hole for me. I don't get a whole lot of feedback and responses from Drew, but hey, would love to talk to Shiloh. It's kind of like, hey, family could use positive, good story, future in the NFL. Reached out to Colorado, been hitting their SID up trying to get Shiloh on the phone. We'd like to get him ahead of rookie minicamp, but if not, I'll get him Friday. It's a cool story. I mean, it's one of those where Shiloh is the opposite, in that I don't think he had a lot of draft expectations. His brother, everybody thinks, is his top 5 pick. I think Dane Brugler does a really good job for the Athletic, and I think Dane had Shiloh as like the number 43 safety, and that's with like 21 that had draftable grades. So I mean, way outside. But again, like if you look at this team, we talked about how receiver, like you don't want to come here if you're a receiver. If you're a safety, it's not an intimidating group of depth. I think if you think about Winfield and Tyke being the starters, like Merriweather, there's Merriweather got a cut last year, and he'd be back right now as a third safety. Maybe there's a couple other options they have, but they're going to have young depth at safety, and it could be guys that, if they're not undrafted this year, they were undrafted the year they came in. Izzian's a guy that probably is versatile enough where he sticks as a nickel and a safety, that kind of thing. And he's a guy that's done everything for them. So that's tough to beat him out. But, Shiloh Sanders, for him, if all he does is make a practice squad and be their, whatever, 5th safety. I mean, the guys they had last year, Rashad Wisdom, Marcus Banks, neither of them are really heralded guys. They never got called up last year with all the injuries they had. So it wouldn't be that hard. There's not a crazy thing that it would take for him to make this team in terms of making the initial practice squad, and then from there making a case for the roster. So it'll be neat to see how he is. I don't think it'll be the same circus that that Shedeur has in Cleveland, or even what Travis Hunter has in Jacksonville. But no, here's somebody who it's a neat thing that I think it was cool that they reached out to the Bucs too. Right. I thought it was interesting, and that the Bucs call everybody. Man, they've got a long list, and for Colorado to be like, hey, we'd like to have Shiloh there. And again, it's fairly.
Well, Greg, I'm sure they did the same thing you just did. They looked at the Bucs safety room. They said Ryan Neal. They signed that guy off the streets a couple, years ago just to get in here. This might be a spot where he could potentially, make his way onto a roster. Who knows?
Yeah, a lot of that too is the respect that they have for Todd Bowles, and having played safety. He seems to be a guy that's helped develop a lot of these secondary players that we bring in. We even talk about Marshall's JJ Roberts. He's in the mix too. But you heard it when Dion was in that video with Shiloh and his brother, and Dion said Todd Bowles is a good brother. That's a good guy. Respect him. You're going to a good place. Tampa's a good place for this. It feels like they're looking at it as, let's go in there, let's learn, let's grow, let's maybe develop, let's see where it goes, and almost like a boot camp of sorts for Shiloh. And if it seems to be that it's mostly because of the coaching staff and of course Todd Bowles being there, and You never know. But listen, he's not wearing 21 before he gets on the phone with my guy Donnie, okay, and gets that cleared, because enough is enough, man. And not everyone can just put on the 21 in Tampa Bay. All right, Donnie Abraham deserves to say no to whoever wants that number. Because last time we saw the 21 out there, it just hasn't been right. I'm sorry, it hasn't been right. What was it? Was it the Italian Stallion? Is that what's his name called? Gruden called him. Sabby had 21 on. I don't like it. Enough is enough. Donnie Abraham, that's his number. He gets to say yes or no.
Rondé already told Benjamin Morrison,
fuck off.
Don't even ask.
Why would you even think that? Why would you even think that?
Don't even.
Like this Abdul Carter stuff where it's like 156. No, let me give Phil Simms. Maybe you pull 11 out of the rest. Like, don't do that publicly, man. Don't make people feel bad. Their jersey's been retired for your entire lifetime.
They earn that.
Not to say you're not special, but go get your own number. Make it something that's yours. I know 11 has a history at Penn State, and I get that, but you're with a different team. It can be a different number. So I don't know if 21 straight the same deal, but I would think Morrison probably fits in at 21 if I'm guessing.
Wow. I can't believe that, Greg. This is a Donnie Abraham podcast. You know that,
Greg,
right?
we had a super chat earlier for you. Corey Richardson said, Greg, he never got to get that beer with you in Nashville. That's our guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So at some point you got to get with him. There was another super chat.
Man. There's AFC towns that you really wish the Bucs went to more often, and Nashville's high on the list for sure.
I can't wait. I want to go. I've never been there. I'm waiting for the Bucs to play there. That'll be one of our trips for sure.
We could just go there, Stink. We just
Great
randomly
city,
go there.
I guess
probably so. There's Acme, I forget, Weed and Feed. Acme's on the end of their restaurants, which live music.
The place where you get the anvils and the giant slingshots to shoot you across cliffs, Acme?
That's different. That's a different Acme. That's both
the Wile E. Coyote Acme.
Yeah, Wiley.
All right, so Greg, before we close the show out, the main thing here, the question of the night was, did the Bucs have the best draft in the NFC South? With everything we've talked about tonight, what is your answer to that question?
I think you have to say so right now. And that's even with the Falcons cribbing into next year's one to augment their draft, if you will. I mean, this is a draft that kind of grew on you. There wasn't a whole lot of I think sometimes to really think a draft is a win, they have to be like, oh, they traded up or this guy fell or that kind of thing. And it was just kind of taking what was there and lining up. And there were people that I probably was underread and didn't know enough about. And you'd read them and say, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense for them. And then to see post-draft, what really impressed me the most was post-draft, where you're looking at who has the best grade, like who got the A grades. And there are a lot of people that don't know the Bucs very well and really like what they got, and then probably can't even appreciate the fits in this draft class for how it matches with what they need and what they want long term. So no, I'm very impressed. Like I said, I don't think people should go in thinking it's going to be 1,000-yard rusher and 8 touchdown receiver and an every snap center like last year's draft class was. It'll be a slow burn, and it'll be some guys that help out. And if there are injuries, it could be guys that help out sooner. But it might be that you don't appreciate this class. I mean, it's kind of like 22. The 22 class, Zion didn't do a ton as a rookie. Gedeke wasn't good as a rookie. That class wasn't amazing out of the gates. And now you look at it, and they got like 3 or 4. Rashad had probably played a lot as a rookie. Otten played a little bit. That ends up being a really good class. So I think this class could be like that in terms of the delayed appreciation of guys learning in the background and being better a year from now, and helping out here and there too this fall.
This is a futures draft for sure. Greg, awesome job, dude. Just fucking crushed it. Unbelievable. I get why Fox has you as part of their team, because you're a professional. Yep. So with that in mind, let all these amazing viewers, maybe not so amazing viewers, actually, some of them, but let them all know where they can get more Greg Auman, okay? Where they can get more of, by the way, phenomenal photo shoot you took for our thumbnail. Unbelievable stuff.
I forgot about that. Thank you.
Awesome. So I totally appreciate all the headshots you sent in. That was awesome. Let all these people know where they can get more Greg Auman.
The Louis C.K. headshots.
Yeah, the Louis C.K. and more of that Louis C.K. I think you have a Louis C.K. TikTok, an impersonation TikTok of some sort too. Let the people know where they can follow and get more Greg.
Yeah, the late Mark Cook would always tell me that I looked and sounded like Louis C.K. So that little weird kind of Photoshop kind of thing, way too much like Louis C.K. But anyway,
AI evidently thinks you look like Louis C.K.
I tell people I think there are worse things people would do with my head and AI, so I really can't complain about a little smirk or whatever you guys did with that. Everything I write is at foxsports.com. I got a couple things I filed today that probably aren't even online yet. Wrote about like best value picks in each round of the draft, which is weird because value right now kind of is just value compared to where we thought guys would go. But Tez Johnson was my 7th rounder for that. So there's a Bucs aspect to that story. And wrote about that. Got a couple other things. I wrote about the 10 biggest games of the 25 season coming up, just because the schedule comes out next week, and just writing about that. Chiefs, I wrote about the Chiefs. Chiefs have 9 home games, and 7 of them are against playoff teams from this past season.
Good.
It's just crazy. Eagles, Lions, Commanders, Ravens, Texans, Chargers, Broncos all play at Arrowhead this year. So just busy with that. Thank you guys very much for having me. Obviously, you guys, I'm on Twitter. If you got questions, hit me up there. Thanks for having me, man. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah,
brother,
for sure.
Appreciate you coming on, man.
And for those of you guys who are watching this show after it's been on, streaming live, you'll find it on our website, loosecannonslive.com. Click on Greg's lovely photo at the bottom of the webpage there, and it'll take you right to all of Greg's links, everything he's got going on online, and his awesome Louis C.K. impersonation TikTok account as well. Greg absolutely crushed it. Like I said, let's get you back on here at some point, and throughout the season, and maybe talk a little bit more shit about the New Orleans Saints, because tonight you absolutely buried them. I'm so fucking proud of you right now, dude. I mean, you listen, you've been gone from the Loose Cannons podcast for a while. It just hasn't happened for whatever reason, and you came back here and you just hit fucking dinger after dinger after dinger tonight. Unbelievable comeback story. Some might say this might catapult your career yet again, because when we had you last time, you weren't yet at Fox Sports, and yet here you are at Fox Sports. Okay,
thanks for that, guys. I appreciate the help.
Yeah, thanks for classing up the place. We really appreciate it. Usually it's just me and Sammer, and it's one of the stupidest shows on the internet, but we appreciate you coming in here and educating the fans. If you don't know who Greg Auman is and you're a Bucs fan, you're not really a Bucs fan. You're not really a Bucs fan. Or you're dumb. One of the two. Sorry.
And do like I do. When you get bored in the middle of the day, send Greg Auman an obscure question and watch him answer in less than 3 minutes.
Yeah, he loves those DMs. Send them his way.
And ask him about jersey numbers for rookies, because no one's asking him that yet, and I think that's something that we all need. So hammer Greg on that, please.
And if you touch his articles or you tweet them out, you better fucking put his name in there. Okay. All right. You better cite your sources. Didn't they teach you that in like English in 4th grade?
Yeah.
Man.
I'm really bad about that. Sorry.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. Don't get me started. Greg, you're the best grammar police I have ever encountered on Twitter. Just so you know. I look up to you.
Yeah.
And we talk about you a lot at the clubs, at the grammar club.
The grammar clubs.
Yeah. We love you, man. You're awesome. Hey,
you're Grammar Karen.
Yeah. Make sure you guys hit the like button, hit that subscribe button if you are new. And of course, leave us a comment. Let us know how amazing Greg was. And if you think the Bucs also had the best draft in the NFC South. Greg, thank you again. And we'll see you guys later on. Go Bucs.
It's kickoff, set it off. Go to Vegas, bet it all. Put it on the Bucs win, whoever they gon' play gon' fall. Don't say I ain't told y'all. Loose cannons gon' fold y'all. Yeah, the Heat be 9-3, but it gets real cold.